Anthony and Sophia became parents to a baby girl when they were just 16. Their marriage, struck at such a young age, faced disapproval from both sets of parents. However, over time, and especially after the arrival of their second child, the grandparents eventually accepted the situation and calmed down. By the time Anthony reached 30, he decided to leave his job and pursue his entrepreneurial dreams. The journey was fraught with challenges. Anthony racked up loans and borrowed money from friends to push his business forward. But success eluded him. He was like a fish out of water, struggling without achieving anything substantial. Sophia's frustration knew no bounds. Her paycheck barely covered the family's expenses, forcing her to pinch pennies on everything. Anthony seemed oblivious to their hardships. He devoted every spare moment to his business, while Sophia, desperate to make ends meet, took on extra work from home. Nights found her crying in helplessness. She tried to reason with Anthony, to make him see the reality of their situation. But he turned a deaf ear. To alleviate the business debts, Anthony had to sell the car that his parents had gifted them. This move didn't entirely settle their debts, but it did slash the principal amount by nearly half. Despite this, Sophia remained deeply unhappy with the state of affairs. Her husband, with tears in his eyes, pleaded with her to sell her car as well, but she remained steadfast. Without a car, she felt helpless, especially with two children who needed constant care. Countless arguments erupted over finances, settling debts, and acquiring new ones. Sophia couldn't fathom why Anthony clung to a business that was draining them dry. "I want to live a normal life like everyone else," she shouted during one of their heated exchanges. "Everyone faces this, sweetheart. Just give me some time," Anthony retorted. The atmosphere in their home increasingly veered away from anything healthy. Sophia seethed at her husband's unwillingness to prioritize the family's needs over his own ambitions, while Anthony fumed over her lack of understanding. Friends who once stood by him gradually distanced themselves, weary of his constant requests for loans and delayed repayments. Anthony found himself almost isolated in his predicament. In an effort to create a more favorable environment, Sophia began taking the children to her mother's house more frequently, where they stayed for a week or two. Despite Anthony's relentless efforts to juggle both his business and his family, his wife's patience had worn thin, leaving him with little chance to mend the situation. She constantly reminded her husband that she was exhausted from scrimping. She didn't want to enter a store and automatically reach for the cheapest items, nor did she want to face the anxiety of watching the total at the register, fearing she wouldn't have enough to cover it. Sophia shared all of this with Anthony, urging him to seek a steady job with reliable income instead of chasing after his unrealistic business dreams. "You never support me? Other wives back their husbands, but you just complain," Anthony shouted into the phone, exasperated. And other husbands realize that families need money. Kids need to eat, go out with friends, and dress nicely. Sophia snapped back, furious. Deep down, Anthony knew his wife had a point. Yet, he was unwilling to abandon his dream. Business was his passion. He never wanted to toil for someone else, but yearned to be his own boss. The sting of Sophia's words often drove him to drink. While the family stayed at her mother's place, bottles of something stronger appeared more frequently on Anthony's table. Over time, their relationship became a roller coaster of reconciliations and conflicts. At times, they lived together harmoniously, and then they drifted apart. The children, confused by the instability, questioned their mother about the situation, but Sophia chose to remain silent, feeling it was wrong to burden them with her grievances against Anthony. Sophia felt at a loss for words. Their son cried every time they had to go to his grandmother's house, as he was deeply attached to his father and missed him. During their separation, Sophia's heart ached each time she saw their son silently weeping in the back seat. Determined to give Anthony a chance and try to embrace his dream of becoming a businessman, she decided to do it for the sake of their children. One day she picked him up from a meeting with suppliers. Anthony slid into the front seat and gently kissed her cheek. Sophia offered a brief smile in response. He tried to make small talk, not wanting to sit in uncomfortable silence. Sophia replied half-heartedly, sometimes merely nodding or smiling. Eventually, Anthony stopped trying to converse. Suddenly, a car swerved in from the left and cut them off. Sophia slammed on the brakes, causing a pack of cigarettes to slide out from under the seat and land at Anthony's feet. He picked it up, looking at her with surprise. Sophia grew anxious and pursed her lips. "Are you smoking again?" Anthony asked. "Yes," she replied curtly. "That's an odd choice of cigarettes. You used to prefer the lighter ones," he commented. "I bought it at the gas station. They didn't have any others," she lied seamlessly. Suddenly, she began berating the driver who had cut them off, waving her arms dramatically. She knew Anthony would figure it out soon, if he hadn't already. Of course, Anthony knew exactly who smoked those particular cigarettes. It was the only person in his circle who did. Everyone always teased Oliver about his old-fashioned, strong cigarettes, but he insisted he had smoked them since he was 16 and would never switch. "How long have you been seeing each other?" Anthony asked quietly. Sophia gripped the steering wheel so tightly, her knuckles turned white. 2 months, she confessed. Something inside Anthony snapped. He closed his eyes and clutched the pack tightly, torn between confronting Oliver, starting a fight, venting all his pent-up frustration, or yelling at Sophia, hurling insults and telling her she was the worst wife imaginable. But he remained silent. Sophia wept. Their love was in ruins. She was the first to break the silence. Sophia was surprised at herself for talking so much. She chatted incessantly, unable to stop. She swore she never meant to be unfaithful, that it had just sort of happened. After one more heated argument, she ran into Oliver at the mall. When he asked what was wrong, Sophia couldn't hold it in any longer and broke down crying on his shoulder. Oliver took her to his place, and from that night on, they were inseparable. They both felt guilty around Anthony, and Oliver constantly urged his lover to be honest with her husband and leave him with a clear conscience. But Sophia kept hesitating, terrified of hurting the kids. "I won't give you a divorce," Anthony suddenly declared. His wife looked at him, taken aback. "What do you mean?" she asked. "No matter what I've heard, I won't grant it," he insisted. His stance was perplexing, given that his anger and displeasure with the situation were clear. "Why put each other through this? It won't end well. The children deserve better than a home where parents don't love each other," Sophia pleaded, hoping to appeal to his reason. But Anthony was steadfast. His resolve, however, didn't last long. After a few months of icy silence and separate beds, he finally broke and proposed divorce himself. The constant negativity weighed him down, and his business also suffered amidst the personal turmoil. He decided it was time for a change. He sold his business and, after the divorce, left their hometown. Moving to the capital, he promised the children frequent visits and vacations together. Sophia, now with the coveted divorce certificate, moved in with Oliver, bringing the children along. However, the kids were unhappy with the new arrangement, and their relationship with their mother soured. Both her daughter and son blamed her for their father's departure. By the time she turned 17, the daughter had persuaded her father to take her in. Eager to pursue her university studies, she longed for a fresh start, and her younger brother, unwilling to part from their father, insisted on following her. The thought of staying away from the man they cherished most was unbearable. Sophia was left wounded, the silence from her children cutting deeper than she had ever imagined. No calls, no messages, just an emptiness she struggled to fill. Oliver, ever the optimist, reassured her, whispering promises that time would mend what was broken. But time moved forward, and all she had left was hope. Cheating Secrets, podcast like me.